In 1497, the Portuguese king Manuel I commissioned the mariner Vasco da Gama to set sail from Lisbon with the objective to reach India, a risky voyage that would end up taking more than 10,000 kilometers. Vasco da Gama and his crew successfully reached India by 1498 and made it back home in 1499. This journey is considered the first time European explorers had ever sailed around Africa, but it isn't even close to the first time the continent had ever been circled. Europe was late by 2,000 years and got beat by an Egyptian pharaoh and a crew of Phoenicians. Or maybe not. Around the year 600 BC, the Egyptian pharaoh Necho II found himself in a disastrous situation. The Neo-Babylonian Empire, ruled by Nebuchadnezzar, had subdued Assyria, a great ally of Egypt. Because of their friendship, Nebuchadnezzar wanted to vanquish the pharaoh. He came close to achieving his objective during the Battle of Carchemish, where Babylon defeated their enemies and proceeded to conquer much of the eastern Mediterranean coast. For trade and security reasons, Necho then tried to build a canal from the Nile River to the Red Sea, though he'd stopped the project because an oracle told him such passage would benefit his enemies more than him. Necho then came to the conclusion that circumnavigating Africa, or as it was known then, Libya, would improve Egypt's defense against Babylon, as well as improve trade, because it was then believed that the continent was way shorter than it actually turned out to be. It's Herodotus who tells the tale of this voyage, 200 years after it supposedly happened. Necho employed the Phoenicians for this journey, a people fluent in the skill of sailing. Herodotus writes in the fourth book of the Histories, the Egyptian king Necho sent out a fleet manned by a Phoenician crew with orders to sail west about and return to Egypt and the Mediterranean by way of the Straits of Gibraltar. The Phoenicians sailed from the Arabian Gulf into the Southern Ocean, and after 2 full years rounded the Pillars of Hercules, and in the course of the third, returned to Egypt. This recounting, by itself, is not very impressive. It could be something the Egyptians had made up in order to impress the Greek historian. According to the Egyptians, however, the Phoenicians had sailed with the sun on their right hand. This tiny detail, which Herodotus was skeptical of, could potentially prove that this voyage did indeed happen. To understand why, we need a little geography lesson first. In the northern hemisphere, where Egypt and Phoenicia are located, the sun is always positioned in the south, which means that if you face west, the sun will always be on your left. But according to the tale, the sailors saw the sun to their right, which would only be possible in the southern hemisphere due to the curvature of the earth. This is precisely why Herodotus did not believe the story, because he assumed that the earth was flat, and thus having the sun to the right seemed absurd. Furthermore, the time span given, that being around 3 years to complete the entire voyage, seems completely within the realm of possibility, as the perimeter of Africa is around 15,000 miles, and the speed of a sailing boat of that area would be about 5 knots. Existing records do not provide many details on how the voyage went, although it is possible to reconstruct a rough blueprint of it. Herodotus tells us that the sailors stopped twice, both times in fall, to cultivate land, and would not resume traveling until after harvesting what they had planted. This statement has been continually doubted by modern scholars, as the Phoenicians couldn't have known what seasons and what seeds were suitable for sowing in the southern hemisphere, far away from their home and the climate that they were used to. Regardless, the 2 places where they supposedly planted the food is unknown, although it is likely that, if it happened at all, one took place in the southern hemisphere in South Africa, and the other one took place in the northern hemisphere, in Morocco, as both are places where wheat can be cultivated, which was probably the food they chose to bring. One additional element that must be taken into account is that the Phoenicians took the opposite route that the Portuguese chose 2 millennia later, which ironically made their voyage significantly easier. As Herodotus states, the explorers started sailing from the Red Sea southwards, where the winds generally flow from the north. The northeast monsoon would have then helped the Phoenicians sail from the Horn of Africa to Mozambique, where the Agulhas current could have carried the explorers to the Cape of Good Hope. The Phoenicians would encounter their last bit of help in the Benguela current, which potentially brought them north to West Africa, where their luck would finally run out. The Intertropical Convergence Zone is an area near the thermal equator where winds collide, which creates a windless weather where sailors can get stuck. The Egyptologist Alan B. Lloyd notes in a research paper, however, that these conditions were not good but perfectly manageable, even for ancient ships. So then, did it really happen? Did the Phoenicians really circumnavigate Africa? The truth is impossible to know, but it's worth noting that the Egyptians have a history of lying with grandiose propaganda. So in conclusion, I don't really know myself. Regardless, even if it did happen, Necho's plans for circumnavigating Africa were an utter failure, as the continent proved to be a lot bigger than everyone expected, and many of its regions were extremely isolated and inhabited by people still in the Stone Age, which deemed this route utterly unfeasible.